The NFL trade deadline is almost here. I'm hanging out with Big B, Brien, Hanley. We're talking about that and so much more coming up on today's Outside the Trenches.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
That time of the year, Big B. Halloween just around the corner. And this year, Halloween means trade deadline time, as that is when the NFL trade deadline is. What is up, everybody? Welcome in to Outside the Trenches, presented by our friends at Five Farms Irish Cream Liqueur. Big B, how you doing? No Nick today. We're down a man, but how are you doing?
I am doing all right. Halloween is almost here.
Yes.
My wife decks out our house every year for a crazy Halloween party, so I'm excited.
You've been sending us some pictures in our group chat, and I've been going through. You guys are ready. You guys are fully prepared for the Halloween season. Listen, I'm impressed. I'm impressed at the lengths you go, of how far you go for the Halloween season. I've got my tickets for we'll go to see Five Nights at Freddy's on Halloween. So
nice.
Got the tickets already ready to go for that.
All right.
Do you guys have any Halloween traditions? I know you guys are big Halloween people. I didn't know if you had any traditions.
No, not really. We just kind of hang out. We go to a friend's house. I live here in the DFW area. We live in Frisco.
Yeah.
Friends live in Plano, and their neighborhood, it looks like Disney World with the amount of people that are going, kids that are up and down. It is unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. It started at 5:30, Tucker, and it went till 9 o'clock. And it literally looked like you were in Disney World. It was just jammed. But you couldn't even drive on the streets. There were so many people. It was incredible.
That's insane. That's crazy. Well, I made a tweet the other day thinking about, like, man, who said that you ever get too old to go trick-or-treating? I was like, I kind of just want some candy. So can I just go around and just trick-or-treat? I don't know if that's acceptable, truthfully. But
put on a mask. They won't even know. Just put on a mask, walk around. Nobody will even know.
Dress up like
just don't say anything.
Yeah. I think that's perfect. But listen, there's a lot of other stuff going on around the NFL. Lots of stuff going on. I want to ask you about last weekend and your takeaways from the last weekend of football. Then we can kind of get into some of the news of transactions that are happening, because stuff's starting to move and shake, especially this time of year. We're getting to week 8 this week. So we're on to week 8 already, which close to that midway point of the season, with there being 17 games. Now there's not really there's not a true midway point. But Big B, your takeaways from last week of NFL action.
Well, the first thing is, I think that big thud that you've heard is, all the Brock Purdy fans and the San Francisco 49er fans coming back down to earth. That's number one. Two, are the Dolphins and the Lions, are they really as good as what people are saying out there? I mean, the Dolphins hadn't beaten anybody, and they've been beaten by at least 2 touchdowns by anybody good that they've played. That's another take on it. And then the Lions, everybody gives them credit. Okay, they beat the Chiefs without Kelsey, without Chris Jones. Okay, fine. Who else have they beat? I mean, who the Lions beat that was any good? And then they just got destroyed by the Ravens. So some things are starting to play out, I think, a little bit, as far as, everybody just being prisoners of the moment. Football, it's a long season, man, and we're starting to find out some things.
You mentioned the Dolphins, and I think that was kind of my biggest takeaway was, you mentioned the 2 times the Dolphins have played a good team, hadn't really been close. So their defense isn't really up to where it needs to be, to the caliber that their offense is, but then their offense just all of a sudden stops scoring points. Like, it's not a sustainable model, I guess you could say, for the Dolphins.
The Dolphins had a bad plan against Philadelphia too. If you watch the game, the Dolphins' deal is trying to get outside. They literally tried to run at the strength of the Eagles' defense by trying to run in between the tackles. I'm like, that's not going to work, and it didn't work. And then near the end of the game, they started running wide. I'm like, should have been doing that all along. It was just a bad plan.
Yeah, it was really interesting, especially for what seems like how brilliant of a mind that that McDaniel is down
Yeah.
there, and especially offensively when it comes to schemes and everything like that. They're a fun offense to watch. I love to watch the offensive innovation that they have there. But something's not clicking on terms of playing that complementary football. In terms of the Dolphins, but looking at the standings right now, in terms of the conferences, the Chiefs sit atop of the
They
AFC.
do.
I gotta love it because Big B, after they lost that first game, remember it was the sky's fallen. Is this it? Is the time up for the Chiefs? They sit up at the top with 6-1 record, only 6-1 record in the AFC, as the Dolphins and the Ravens and the Jaguars all share a 5-2 record with various tiebreakers. It goes Dolphins, Ravens, Jaguars, and the Steelers at spot number 5, Browns at spot number 6, and the Bills at spot number 7. Big B, you ready to give up on the Bills yet in terms of them making the playoffs, or you think that they can sneak their way in there in that 7 seed?
That's another team, man, that just keeps getting beat
Yeah.
for unknown reasons. I shouldn't say unknown reasons. Josh Allen, here's the thing. If they just run the football with running backs and stop trying to make Josh Allen play hero ball, I think the Bills are fine. But they won't do that. They just literally won't do that. They won't just let him be the quarterback and go make the plays that he can make. They want him to do everything, and he's just not capable of doing that, man.
Right.
And I don't think he should have to be. I don't think he should have to
Right.
be. I mean, the Chiefs aren't asking Mahomes to run for 75 yards a game, throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Chiefs aren't asking him to do that. And by the way, run over linebackers and what are we talking about here? You just have him do those things. You have running backs. Let them run the football. Let your defense play complementary football, but they don't do that. Josh Allen still turns the ball over too much, trying to do too much. I don't know. Still a lot of football left to be played, but I don't know, man. The Bills, they're not looking great.
Josh Allen seemed pretty dejected after the post-game press conference. He seemed pretty dejected. I know he's like, "Oh yeah, still a lot of game, lots of season left," which true. There's over half the season left, but to start your first half of the season the way the Bills have, less than ideal for the folks over there at Buffalo. Man, they'll probably beat the Chiefs in the regular season because that's just how it happens. Like they always beat the Chiefs in the regular season, but then when they meet in the playoffs, the Chiefs will find a way to pull out a victory. But I think that Josh Allen, I've had this conversation with several people. His highs are incredibly high, but his lows are incredibly low in terms of how he plays, because he can make some insane throws. I watch, I'm like, wow, that is incredible that he can do that. I think that he's probably the second best quarterback talent wise in the NFL. But at the same time, you also watch some of his decisions and you're like, did Nathan Peterman switch bodies with him? Like what is going on? And it's so confusing to me. Just the dichotomy of Josh Allen, the two different Josh Allens, like the devil and the angel on the shoulder, right? Of which Josh Allen are you going to get that day? And it just depends. I am wearing a Buffalo hat. Shout out to Justin Hutchins for noticing that. It's Casey Buffalo Company. They sell buffalo meat. Very good stuff. Love Brad Batchelder over there at Casey Buffalo Company and Batchelder Family Farms over there. They support us, and so obviously I gotta support those guys out there at Batchelder Family Farms and Casey Buffalo. Listen, we got something cooking up for the Buffalo game. Just I'm planting a seed. Something cooking for the Buffalo game. But yeah, I do think that's a team that when I looked at the standings, I'm like, wow, Buffalo at 7 right now seems very interesting. They're just a spot ahead of the vaunted Houston Texans, of everyone who everybody thought would be in the mix here. But Big B, I need to talk about your AFC North, because you look at it now, 3 teams right now, if the playoffs were to start today, would be in from the AFC North. Tough division. A division built on defenses, essentially. They got some weird stuff going on with the Browns over there with the quarterback situation. Not really sure what's going on over there. But very tough division. The Ravens playing well this year. Really all the teams playing well.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. If the division, or if the season ended today, 3 teams would be in. The Bengals wouldn't be one of those. That's the crazy thing. And I still think the Bengals are going to win the division. So that's why I know there's a ton of football that is still left. The one thing that I do know, though, And I brought it up last week. Those pesky Pittsburgh Steelers keep winning football games. Now, it's on smoke and mirrors. I'll admit that, I mean, they don't even turn the offense on until the fourth quarter. But, I mean, apparently that's the secret sauce. I don't know. But yeah, man, it's a good division. The Ravens put their best foot forward against the Lions. Lamar Jackson played an incredible game. Must have been the day that, because I've still said it from the very beginning. I think the two best quarterbacks in the league are Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. I thought they were going to have the two best seasons, and they must have called each other before the game, said, "Hey, man, let's put our foot down on the gas today," because both of them just absolutely put on an absolute show, just a clinic on how to play quarterback.
I'm glad that you brought that up about Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes, I don't want to say quietly had some not Patrick Mahomes like games this season, because I think we were aware of it, right? That Patrick Mahomes wasn't playing like 2018 Patrick Mahomes, wasn't playing like 2022 Patrick Mahomes, and he's always going to be compared. Patrick Mahomes at the level where he's always going to be compared to his past season or his other seasons. It's his standard's different, right, than all these other quarterbacks is going to be. And I think people in Kansas City know that by now. But he hadn't played to the Mahomes standard yet. And it was against the Chargers, which, you know, the biggest threat to them in the AFC West, where he said, all right, in case y'all forgot type of game. He goes out there, throws for 300 plus in the first half. Travis Kelce has over 100 in the first half. I thought for a second there he was going to set his career high, which was, I think it was high 400s, and it was the Monday night game against the Rams. Him and Jared Goff kind of going at it. As you know, when you think of Jared Goff Rams teams, you think about the high potent offense that they had there. But both teams just didn't play defense in that game. But Patrick Mahomes, man, if he plays like that all year with the defense that they have, I don't know if many people can stop them, because the defense is looking very good. I think Field Yates tweeted out earlier this week that the Chiefs are the only defense that hasn't allowed their opponents to score more than 21 points, which is a wild stat 8 weeks into the season, going into the 8th week of the season, where they're going to face the Denver Broncos, who they have beaten 16 straight times now. 2015, the last quarterback to beat was Peyton Manning to beat the Chiefs. So just think about that, how long ago that was. But yeah, so a lot of interesting moving parts, and that's just the AFC. We didn't really hit on the NFC all that much because, you know, I think as Chiefs fans, and Big B, you're a Steelers fan. I don't know how this goes for you. Personally, for me, I don't pay attention a whole lot to the NFC side of things. Like when I see, you know, the Eagles and Cowboys are playing, I'm like, oh, that's an interesting game. I'll watch that game. But I'm not like, oh, I need to watch this NFC showdown going on. And that could be because, as producer Nick puts in the chat here, NFC is just not as good as the AFC.
No, that's the one. That was the main thing is that there's a few good teams that are in the NFC, but other than that, they're not really good. And I won't pay attention even for fantasy football. I'm just like, I'll change it around or whatever. But the AFC has so many more good teams than the NFC. It's almost a joke at this point. And one of that is because the quarterback play is so good. I mean, you look at the quarterback play like in the NFC South. I mean, it's horrendous what's going on there, you know? So it's just like, nobody even wants to win that division. So it's tough to watch. But yeah, I'm the same way with you, Tucker. I don't pay that much attention to it unless it's our man Brock Purdy that's choking up a storm. I'll tune into that because, you know, as he went to Iowa State. There's so many people that have texted me and tweeted me, oh, look at Brock Purdy. You were wrong, Brien. Yeah, well, was I wrong? I said, just get a little game pressure and he'll turn into that Iowa State Brock Purdy. And lo and behold, 2 games with game pressure, and he's turned into that Brock Purdy. So it is what it is.
I kind of gave him a little bit of a pass for the Browns game, right? Good defense. There was weather. Okay, I'll be like, all right, I'll allow the
and
one.
He did get him in contention at the end of the game, so I gave him some credit for that. You're right.
He did. Right. He also lost every single Infinity Stone in his gauntlet, you know. So what was he supposed to do, right? Yeah, he lost them all. So when going into Minnesota, I remember actually being in the office and looking at that game and thinking, I'll just take San Francisco minus whatever because they'll probably cover. Like Minnesota, Chiefs just played Minnesota. They weren't that good. Like I wasn't impressed by Minnesota.
No.
and the Chiefs offense didn't even play that good that game. San Francisco, I think, was going into that game. I was like, oh, San Francisco probably the best team in the country, in the league, is what you say. This isn't college football. The best team in the league. So I was like, oh, I'll just take minus San Francisco, whatever.
Sure.
That obviously was not a good bet, and I'm glad I didn't do that because that wouldn't have hit from our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. But I was kind of surprised by that game. I don't know about you, Big B, but that game kind of surprised me a little bit.
It did. What's really surprised me is that we saw the offensive line of the Vikings and against the Chiefs, and they were not good. To say they were not good is being kind. No sacks given up against San Francisco. Gave up no sacks, and they literally went up and down the field like they were doing wind sprints. I mean, Kirk Cousins, primetime Kurt, everybody's making fun of him, and for good reason. He stunk in primetime over his career. He might as well have been Joe Montana out there. He's just absolutely killing them. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And that was without Justin Jefferson. Without Justin Jefferson, they went up and down the field against the 49ers, who we all thought, and for good reason, had the best defense in the league. It couldn't have. I mean, there was a lot of people lost a lot of money on that game. A lot of money for sure. Vegas, that's how Vegas is built. Right there. That's literally how Vegas is built on games like that.
Before we hit a break, Big B, this exercise was played out in a group chat that I was in, and I have the list right here that I kind of made on another sheet of paper. How many quarterbacks? And I didn't really give you a heads up for this. We were going to talk about this, so this is going to be off the top of your head. How many quarterbacks in the NFL would you take over Brock Purdy?
Ooh, I mean, I've answered that question several times. Probably 12. I would guess 12.
I had 10 down, is what I wrote down. I wrote down
10 is a good number too, but anywhere between 10 and 12. It depends on, like, when you start getting down there, like, would you take Dak over him? Me personally,
right?
I would probably take Purdy over Dak. The way that Dak's been playing, I would take Purdy. But so it just depends. 10 to 12 is a good number, but that's how many people that I would take before him. I mean, heck, I would take 2 quarterbacks in the AFC West over him.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
actually. Sorry.
Yeah, I would take 2. I would take Burrow over him, Allen over him, Lamar over him. Tua, I would take Tua over him.
Yep.
I don't think I would take. Obviously, I wouldn't take Wilson over him. And Mac Jones, I wouldn't take him. I would take Lawrence over him. Let's see who else is out there. Nobody else, because I'm not taking Basket Case Tannehill. I'm not taking him.
No.
Now Stroud is interesting, but I mean, they're kind of close to proving the same amount of stuff. But I don't think you can say Stroud just because he hasn't played as many games, hasn't won as many games. But I wouldn't say Stroud. You go to let's see, that's all the division in the AFC, isn't it? North, South, East. Yep.
Yeah, and it gets thin in the NFC.
Yeah, I would take Hurts over him for sure. Not Daniel Jones, not Dak. I would take Cousins over him. A lot of people, and that's where some people, I don't know, but I would definitely, I would take Cousins over him. So I would take Goff over him as well.
Yes. So that's what I had. I had Stroud and Anthony Richardson down as well, just because of based off like pure talent. I would take both of those guys. I think that Brock Purdy is just a younger Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. It makes sense. You know, the thing about it is that I hate on Brock Purdy because I think it's funny, but Brock Purdy he's a good quarterback. To say that he's bad is silly. People that say, oh, he's terrible, we didn't think he was any good. Come on now. The guy has proven to be a good quarterback. I don't care where he was drafted. That doesn't mean anything to me at this point because he's playing on the football field and he's producing. Yes, he's got a ton of weapons around him, but you also can't knock people for playing with good players. You know, I know for so long people say, oh, well, he wouldn't be as good, and maybe not, but you can't tell me that I'm not a good player. It's like saying that Joe Montana wasn't a good quarterback because Jerry Rice was a receiver. I mean, that's insane to say stuff like that. Or Travis Kelce's not a good tight end because Patrick Mahomes throws him the ball, or vice versa.
Yeah.
You can't knock guys for playing with good people. Now, you can say that they have a loaded roster around him, so he's just a kind of a plug and play guy. But I think he's playing better than what Jimmy Garoppolo was doing. For sure he is.
Sure.
So that's just my thoughts.
There's a group of quarterbacks of like, you brought up Dak. I put Dak in this group. It's Dak, Kirk Cousins, Kyler, and Geno that I think that I could kind of, you could convince me either way to take him or not take him.
I don't know about Geno.
Geno's a tough one.
I would take Purdy over Geno. Geno's playing bad this year.
I think
like Geno's going back to the decade on the bench. Geno.
I mean, out of everybody in the group message, I took Brock out of those four, but like those were the four that were like the contested ones of like, okay, those are the bubble guys right there in terms of that where you slot him in. But I think you make a good point. He's a good quarterback. I don't think he's generational.
Not spectacular. No, he's not generational. Or people saying the word that gets thrown out there, the social media word, elite.
Yes,
elite. And Brock Purdy is anything but elite. First of all, he doesn't drive the ball down the field. So that's Flacco. The first thing. That's right. He does not drive the ball down the field. So that becomes a problem. And what Minnesota just said was, look, we're going to put all these guys at the line of scrimmage. We're not going to let you run the football. So McCaffrey's not going to beat us. I dare you to throw it over our head. And he can't challenge people down the field like that. He doesn't have the arm for that.
No, he doesn't. All right, we're going to take a break. When we get back, we will talk trade deadlines, some players who could be on the move, some teams who might want to be making some moves coming up right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Welcome back into Outside the Trenches, presented by our friends at Five Farms Irish Cream Liqueur. Big B, we are at trade deadline talk. As we talked about at the top of the show, Halloween time is the trade deadline. I believe it's like 4 Eastern, 3 Central time is the trade deadline. So let's talk about some teams that could be on the hunt. First, I think we need to mention that the Titans traded away Kevin Byard for what the Titans are doing is so confusing to me. I don't understand what is going on. But anyway, they traded Kevin Byard to the Eagles. The Eagles sent somebody back, right? They sent somebody to them.
Terrell Edmonds,
that's right. Who just didn't really kind of fit.
Nope.
He didn't.
Nope.
Cool signing by them. Like they signed, I was like, oh, that's interesting. It just didn't work. And he probably fits better in Tennessee. Truthfully, in that defense than he would in there. But the Chiefs obviously trading for McCole Hardman. So those are a couple of trades that have happened. Those are the two only notable ones really that have happened so far. But as we get closer, as we inch ever so closer to this trade deadline, Big B, do you think we'll see some more movement because of the parity this year that we've seen with some of these teams? Or do you think the parity hurts some of the teams that could be in the hunt for some players?
I actually do, because this is one of those years, Tucker, where a lot of guys are on like the last year of their deal, making a bunch of money, and they're a little bit older and can go help a team. I just think this is the year where the NFL is catching up to the other sports that are making these deadline moves because, hey, we're out of it. And I think teams are like, you know what, we're out of it now. If we can play better, get this off the books, blah, 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 and see what happens. But a team like the Giants, Tennessee, like we've seen, the Broncos, I think those teams, while not necessarily giving up, but they've given up. They're looking to try to improve their team for next year, get draft picks back. So I think this is a year where there's going to be a lot of movement at the trade deadline.
So we saw the Chiefs make a move for McCole Hardman. Comes in, has an impact in the first game that he's in there with that big punt return. I think it was one of the second longest returns. I have to look that stat up again. And it was something crazy, and the other longest was like McCole Hardman as well. I'll look that up, but I want to ask you, Big B, do you think the Chiefs need to make another move? They seem like they got some stuff figured out on the defensive side of the ball. Could they add another pass rusher? Frank Clark, who I think we all kind of anticipated him to sign a deal with Kansas City, says, no, I'm going back to Seattle to sign a deal, which he goes straight to the 53-man roster. I just assume based on that. I don't know. I'm not reporting anything. I don't know anything, right? but I assume that Seattle said, hey, we'll give you an active 53-man roster spot. And the Chiefs were like, hey, we'll give you a practice squad spot. And he said, I'll take the active 53 spot. Don't blame him at all. And I think that's kind of what happened kind of in Denver a little bit too. They gave him more money than I think the Chiefs were willing to give him to. So shout out to Frank. Glad he's landed on his feet and everything like that. But I think a lot of people assumed that Frank Clark would be back in Kansas City. He's not. Do you think the Chiefs need to make another move for the defense to kind of shore up some depth? We saw Nick Bolton go down with an injury. Do you think they need to shore up some depth, or do you think it's more on the offensive side of the ball, or do you think they should just stay pat right now?
I think the defensive side of the ball, I wouldn't mind them getting another pass rusher. I know the Chiefs have a bunch of pass rushers, but they're not necessarily difference makers. You knew Frank Clark, although he wasn't going to be great in the regular season, you knew in the playoffs he was going to show up. He was going to show up and he was going to do his thing. So I think they would do themselves wise to go out and try to find another pass rusher. Now, Danielle Hunter, I don't know if they go out and get him, but I don't think it's out of the question that they go out and try to get. I mean, the guy's leading the league in sacks. Thing about that is, I don't think Minnesota is giving up, because if you look at Minnesota's next 8 games, they got a chance to win 6 of those games, and looks like Detroit might be coming back to the pack. Not a whole lot of great teams in the NFC anyway. I think Minnesota's thinking we can make the playoffs. So that's one out there that 2 weeks ago everybody said, "Yep, go get him." Now, not so much. So we'll see. But I think the Chiefs absolutely could do themselves some favors by looking for another pass rusher and also another receiver. I think they can still go find another receiver. We love the Hardman pickup. Rashee Rice is starting to turn in to what everybody thought that he was going to turn into. And he's getting better, and Mahomes trusts him. That's the main thing. He's earned some trust from Mahomes. But I think if they went and got another guy, another red zone weapon, I think that they would be doing themselves a huge favor.
I think so too. Just looking at the chat, Justin Hutchins asked, "Will the Chiefs make one more move before Tuesday? And will the Chiefs trade Clyde?" I don't think they're trading Clyde. I don't think that's going to be a part of the deal. I've seen some people throw out trading for a running back. I don't think that'll be a part of the deal as well.
No.
When you mentioned pass rushers, there's a name that's been thrown out there, I think for it feels like 3 years now. It's probably just been 2, but Brian Burns out in there in Carolina. I would love to see him in a Steve Spagnuolo defense and with him out there. Just Chase Young, another guy who's coming up on, I think he's either in the final year of his deal or he has the option left on the 5th year.
They didn't pick up Chase Young's option.
Okay, so they didn't pick it up. So he's in the last year of that deal then. So he would be a free agent going at man. Chase Young would be a fun guy to mix into with this offense. I think Montez Sweat also is kind of available at Washington. Washington's in kind of a limbo spot anyway right now. With just like what they want to do with the future. And you mentioned Danielle Hunter. I don't think that's going to be one, but it could be interesting, as you mentioned, for them to pick up a pass rusher. Chris Jones said it when obviously in reference to Frank Clark. Him and Frank Clark are buddies, but he said you can never have too many pass rushers.
Nope.
And that shows evident when it comes late in the season, when you're making these runs to the Super Bowl, when you can throw waves of guys out there, waves of pass rushers out there, fresh legs against offensive linemen that have been playing for 4 quarters.
Yep.
It's gonna fare pretty well, but I think that's a really interesting one. I see Draw Bomb in the chat here. He's threw out Hollywood Brown as terms of wide receiver. I don't know if the Chiefs will. The tough part about Hollywood Brown is his contract. That's going to be the hard part because the Chiefs don't have a ton of cap room and they don't have a ton of cap flexibility. So they're going to have to get a guy. They're going to have to trade for a guy on a rookie deal or a cheap vet min.
He's also deal. Not that much of a red zone threat either.
Yeah. His skill set seemingly overlaps with a lot of the receivers that the Chiefs already have on the team. So it seems like the skill set would be redundant. I don't want to say irrelevant because I think Hollywood Brown's a phenomenal wide receiver. And I think that put him in the offense, he's probably taking some reps away from Sky Moore. He's probably taking some reps away from some of the guys that you do want to see out there. And you mentioned with Rasheed Rice doing what he's doing now and just kind of using him differently than they used him at SMU, has been a really cool thing for the Chiefs offense. But that's kind of the $1 million question, right? Is if the Chiefs do make a move before Tuesday, what is it going to be? I assume it would be a depth type signing or depth type trade for low capital in terms of what they want to give up. I don't anticipate them making a splash trade, right? Is what I should say. And if they do, more power to them. I just don't think they have enough cap space to fit in a guy with a contract like Hollywood Brown, or didn't Brian Burns just sign a new contract too? Or I think Adam Thielen has a 3-year deal as well, which has been a name that's thrown out there a little bit. DJ Moore has a new deal, another name that's been thrown out there.
Yeah, those guys make way too much money.
That's too big of a cap hit for him. Would it be fun? Absolutely. I'm not debating that at all. Would absolutely love to see those guys with Patrick Mahomes. DeAndre Hopkins, another one that like, what are the Titans going to be selling? Why don't you call him about DeAndre Hopkins? It's going to be a lot of money on the books there for
now.
DeAndre
One of the
Hopkins.
things though is that you can manipulate it a little bit, and those other teams can pick up some of that money if they really are trying to get rid of the guy. So we'll see how it happens. But you're right. They're going to have to fit it in money-wise. Chiefs don't have a ton, but there's always a way. There's always a way.
If we've learned anything in the Patrick Mahomes era of the Kansas City Chiefs football, they can finagle that cap a little bit.
Yeah, buddy. Absolutely.
There's different ways that they can fit some guys in. But Big B, I want you to pick offense or defense. Which way you want to go with this?
Let's say offense.
Because there's two guys I got on the top of my head. One plays offense, one plays defense that we could talk about in terms of the trade deadline. First, I want to answer this question from Brendan Veith. Sorry if I pronounced your last name wrong. What about trading for Juju back? Again, that's come
anymore.
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with his knee.
That's right.
And I think the Chiefs knew that. I think the Chiefs
100% knew that.
There was something wrong with his knee. That's why they didn't re-sign him. And he signed a 3-year, $11 million is what I think it was, or something like that. 3-year, 11 per year, I think is what it was. So
it was like 3 years, $33 million. He's had a knee issue going back to Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
so, he just can't play football anymore. I don't even think he's playing right now because he's hurt.
He was out. Yeah, I have him on my fantasy team. He's all just on my bench, but I don't think I've played Juju at all this year in fantasy now that I think about it.
Yeah. I love what he did last year, but I think the Chiefs knew that they got everything that he had left, because I think the Chiefs would have, if he had something left, I absolutely believe the Chiefs would have signed him back. And I think they just knew, no, he can't do it anymore.
Well, here's my theory. Here's my theory of what I think happened with him is that they saw what he did and he played well. Like he gave it. That was like a bounce back rebound year for Juju. Shout out for him coming there and getting the money that he did, right? 3 years for 33 was probably more than he was going to get. Well, when he left Pittsburgh, he got more. He didn't get that much when he left Pittsburgh. So when he signed with the Chiefs, it was like, okay, 1 year prove it deal. He did it. He proved it. The Chiefs probably gave them a number and said, okay, this is, if you want to come back, they said, go check it out. Go date other people. Go talk around. But just know you got this number right here.
Right.
Just know you got this. And he got something better. Good for him. Glad he got the money, everything like that. But I don't think Juju's coming back. But you said offense.
Yes.
I want to talk about Derrick Henry. Is he going to be on the move? His age, does that play into it? Are there any teams that could be interested in a Derrick Henry type guy? There's one team in that vaunted AFC North that I'm thinking of that lost a running back that might be able to use another one.
Well, I know that they're talking about, the one team, there's two teams actually. There's been a lot of buzz about the Cleveland Browns.
Yes.
He doesn't fit what Cleveland's trying to do. I know Nick Chubb was there and he's a runner, but they kind of replaced Nick Chubb with what they try to do. I think they fit Nick Chubb in because he was so good and their line is good outside of Jedrick Wills, but their line is so good. So I think they just fit Nick Chubb in and say, we got to give this guy the ball. But they want a guy like Kareem Hunt or Jerome Ford. That's kind of what Cleveland wants to do. The team that everybody should be worried about is the Baltimore Ravens. If the Baltimore Ravens get Derrick Henry, it might be cancel Christmas. So that's the team that everybody should be worried about getting Derrick Henry. Because if you look at the Ravens backfield, Justice Hill and I can't remember his name. But they're just average guys. They're just average guys.
Yeah.
And if Derrick Henry goes to Baltimore, it's a problem. I'm just for everybody, not just the Chiefs, or it's a problem for everybody. So gotta hope as Chiefs fan that doesn't happen, because you put him in the backfield with Lamar Jackson, with the weapons that they have on the outside and their offensive line starting to gel. I'm not sure how you stop them. I really don't. I'm not sure how you stop them.
And what I think is interesting about Derrick Henry is I think that the Titans have kind of built their offense around Derrick Henry, right?
Yes.
Kind of the same way that the Ravens have built their offense around Lamar.
Correct.
Like Lamar wasn't going to be able to plug and play into any other offense and be Lamar, right?
Correct.
I don't know if Derrick Henry can plug and play into any other offense and be Derrick Henry. Now, Derrick Henry's a freak of nature, and I'm not going to underestimate him at all, but you bring up the Ravens, and that's like, because they love to run the ball. And imagine a little triple option there with
or
Derrick
just even
Henry.
a read option. You got a read option and with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. I mean, what do you do? That's like a fantasy football backfield. I mean, seriously. I mean, when you think about it, running downhill with Derrick Henry, do I take him or do I take Lamar Jackson? I mean, it's just, it wouldn't be fair. So I'm not saying they'd be unbeatable. I'm not saying that, because we've seen Lamar in the playoffs. Right. I'm just saying it would be a problem.
Would be very fun. All right, let's get to the defense. Let's get to the one defensive player that I had been thinking on. One of the Chiefs' opponents coming up this week. It's Justin Simmons. Justin Simmons always has the number of Patrick Mahomes too. Seems to always get an interception when the Chiefs play the Broncos.
Really good.
He is good. Could the Broncos be wanting to move on from him? I know Pat Surtain's been thrown out there too. I think it's a little too quick for them wanting to trade to Pat Surtain. I'm not into that one. Jerry Jeudy, again, another guy who's been thrown out there, but the Broncos have said, no, we're not going to trade him. But Justin Simmons is a guy that could be traded. What do you think that, how do I want to word this, Big B? Where do you think he gets moved, and what kind of team do you think he goes to?
Well, I mean, the Broncos aren't winning anything. I mean, let's say they're not winning anything. So if the Broncos are smart, the Broncos probably understand they have to do a complete overhaul of their roster to be any good. So while Justin Simmons is a good football player, he's not going to help you 2-3 years down the road. You need draft picks. That's what you need as the Broncos to rebuild your roster. So I think he does get moved if the Broncos are smart. So that's, yet to be seen if they are or not on that front. But if they are, they move him, and it's going to have to be to a team that's a contender. If the Broncos are smart, because first of all, nobody else is going to want to trade for him. So if you're not a contender, they don't want him. They don't need him. They're trying to do the same thing you are. So I think he goes to a contender. I don't know. I mean, he could go to I wouldn't say like the Jets or anybody like that, but put him over. I mean, he can't go to Philly. I mean, gee, many Christmas. I mean, Philly's gotten everybody.
I know.
So he can't go there. So, I mean, but I could see him going to a Buffalo, possibly.
See, an interesting thought that I had was Miami. It seems like Miami's got a lot of injuries back there. So it seemed like he would kind of fit in there in Miami in terms of their secondary. I don't know, like scheme-wise, how fit and everything like that, but just in terms of like personnel.
They need injuries, help, for sure.
They do. Yeah. So that was who I was thinking of on the defensive side of the ball. But Big B, there's so much going on, so much happening, and we're hitting a time of the sports equinox where we're getting days where I believe it's Monday. I believe next Monday is a sports equinox day where you have the NBA, you have the NFL, you have the NHL, and the World Series going on all at the same time. Those are beautiful. and there's no better time to be on DraftKings Sportsbook than during a sports equinox day. And NBA fans, the wait is over. Basketball is back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is celebrating with an unbeatable offer. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets for throwing down $5 on the NBA. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. You'll start the season with an instant dub like my Orlando Magic. And with the DraftKings parlays, everyone's got a shot at even bigger basketball wins. String together multiple bets from the same game or build your parlay across multiple games for a shot at making your payday even sweeter. Basketball is more fun when you're in on the action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code KCSN. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly for betting just $5 on DraftKings Sportsbook with code KCSN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/basketball terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. All right, Big B, we've hit the time of the night where it's time to round out the show with a Blind Nil, the brainchild of Nick Leckie, who is not here tonight, sadly. But we persevere. Big B, do you want to start us off with your Blind Nil?
Sure. I'm sticking with the Halloween theme until Halloween is over. I'm sticking with the theme. Do we do candy corn or do we not? And I guess the better question is, what is your favorite Halloween candy? And then what is your least favorite Halloween candy? So I guess it's a two-parter.
Yeah,
two-parter.
No. I do candy corn. Yes, I like candy corn. I realize that's a I'm in the minority there. I realize.
Nah, the people that don't eat candy corn are weird. That's all I'm going to say. People that don't
sugar.
like it are weird. Exactly. I love it.
I think I love it. I like the little pumpkins too. I like all of them. My girlfriend Tara doesn't like candy corn, so she sets out the decorations, not quite to the extent of your wife does, but she sets out the decorations as well, and she likes to have a jar of candy corn, but she doesn't want me to eat the candy corn. And I said, you can't just you can't have a jar of candy corn and not have me eat. She said, that's my display candy corn. I said, that's
torture.
That is. So we have to buy separate bags of candy corn for me to eat because she doesn't like candy corn. So I get all the candy corn to myself, except the stuff that is the display candy corn. But I'm a big fan of candy corn. I like the Reese's pumpkins. Yeah. The pumpkin Reese's. They're much like the Reese's eggs, which are very good. Least favorite candy. I'm not a big black licorice fan. I'm not a big fan of that. So there's some black licorice candies and stuff like that. That's just the first candy that I don't like that comes up my head. I like a lot of candy. That might come as a shocker. People might look at me and say like, "Oh, yeah, no, really, you like a lot of candy." But there's not a lot of things that I don't like in terms of that. But black licorice is just one of those things. Nah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Whoppers. I am not a fan of the Whopper. Here, April H again in here. She doesn't like candy corn by itself. That's why I say people that don't like candy corn are weird. But if you put it with peanuts, it tastes like a payday. And she loves.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't eat nuts. I'm just not that person. I don't know. So I don't do it. So she won't eat candy corn by itself. But if you put nut, and a lot of people do that. A lot of people do that. You mix it in there, it tastes like a payday. People love it. So, but my favorite, I'm pretty simple as far as my favorite Halloween candy is Kit Kat. Yeah. I could eat Kit Kats. And again, my dad, my goodness, God bless his soul. And he just, the man, you know how that goes. I got to check the candy to see, if it's poison. I'm like, but you're eating it. That used to be the thing that I never said it, but I was always thinking, I'm like, you're eating the candy. So if it is poison, what are we doing here? Half my bag would be gone. But he knew, and that I love my dad to death. He always left the Kit Kats because he knew that was my favorite thing. So you leave me the Kit Kats, but everything else, just gobble, gobble, gobble. He's like hungry hippo eating my candy. Unbelievable.
I do, man. I see. I might have to go trick or treating again so I can have that bag full
I
of
told
candy.
you.
The
Hey,
the
man, just
div-
put on a mask.
the
Nobody will know.
diversity. I
Nobody will know. Just don't say anything. Blend in with a group of teenagers. You'll be all good.
true. I'm not that tall. There's
There
gotta
you
be there's
go.
gotta be a group of large kids I can blend in with in terms of.
Absolutely.
I'm going to a Halloween party. Maybe this should be my blind nil. But yeah, maybe I'll make it my blind nil. I'm going to a Halloween party this weekend, and it's a costume party.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a costume yet. I gotta figure out a costume.
Ooh.
I know. So I don't really want. I want it to be. I don't want it to be like, oh, you obviously threw that together last minute. So I want it to be like somewhat thought out.
Right.
The Kevin James meme was thrown out there in some group chats that I could be, but no, I've just been brainstorming on costumes that I could do. I could run down to the Spirit of Halloween store, get one of those but see, I don't want to do like grab a banana suit or something like that, or one of those like riding a T-Rex. Have you ever seen those
Yes.
Halloween costumes?
Yes. Oh,
Kind of
yeah.
cool though.
They are. They are. So you and the girlfriend, you guys don't go as a tandem together.
Well, we are.
Okay.
We are. So that's probably why I didn't do the Kevin James meme, because it's like, I've got a costume now. What are you gonna do? Type of deal.
I gotcha.
But it'd have to be some sort of tandem costume that we're
That's
trying to think of.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, our Halloween party is at our house. I
Yes.
can't even remember how many years, other than the COVID year. And I think we even did one during COVID,
Mm.
which was risky. But we're in Texas, so COVID apparently didn't happen here.
Yeah, it didn't exist.
But other than that, yeah, we've had a Halloween party. We used to go to a crazy Halloween party in Overland Park every year too, before we moved down here. And then even when we moved down here, we would make a special trip back to a friend's house that had a crazy Halloween party there.
Yep.
But for us this year, we are doing Scooby-Doo. So
See,
I
that
am going
crossed
to
my
be
head.
Shaggy. Oh, Shaggy.
It
Shaggy
wasn't
Brien.
me. Not that Shaggy. I like that idea. That crossed my mind of what we could be. But I don't know. I'll probably have to do more research, consult with Tara a little bit. But I've got another one, another blind note that I had written out.
Yep.
So these days, we're gonna dip a little bit into college football, Big B. I love college
Let's
football.
do it.
I
So
know,
do
I know,
I.
I know you love college football.
Absolutely.
With the recent trend of conference realignment, we're seeing a lot of different football conferences, specifically Group of 5 conferences. The Big 12 is doing it a little bit too, playing on nights other than Saturday. So
Yeah.
they're playing on days other than Saturday. The MAC, I feel like, started that. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just anecdotally feels like the MAC popularized playing in the middle of the week with the MACtion on Tuesdays. Now you're seeing Conference USA play on Tuesdays. You're seeing games happen on Mondays, Thursdays when we're recording the podcast. Sometimes going on Wednesday. I know there's Jacksonville State was playing a team that has come up from the FCS, is being coached by Rich Rodriguez, by the way. Is playing very well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams coming up from the SES ranks that are playing very well, James Madison being one of them. But I'm curious to you, what is your favorite night of the week to be like, man, I don't know what's on. Let me turn on the TV and you see college football. What is that night that you're like, thank goodness there is a Conference USA game on in the middle of the week?
I'll be honest. This year with the writer strike, college football has saved me during the week because April and I are television show people. Like we watch television shows during the week.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. Now, obviously, when sports are on, we're going to do that, but we watch television shows during the week and they haven't been on. So it's like, okay, what are we doing here? So Tuesday nights have been just, I'll watch them. And usually I never gave them a second thought until this year. Absolutely watch and get into it. So Tuesday for sure is a day that has saved me and my sports sanctity because I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just like, what am I supposed to do here? I can't watch. a bunch of reruns, and we watch Netflix shows from time to time. But even then, those were getting shut down too because, again, nobody's writing new stuff. So it's just like, okay, what are we doing here? So Tuesday, yeah, absolutely. I have no problems watching a game now on Tuesday.
I love a good Thursday game because it will give me an excuse not to watch the awful Thursday Night Football product. I can't remember. Oh, James Madison was playing. It was last Thursday. James Madison was playing, and they actually play some fun football. I don't know if you watched much of James Madison. They're good. They're a wagon. And I was watching them instead of the Thursday night game last week. And it was like one of those things, like, thank goodness that that this James Madison football game is on, or I'd have to watch. I don't even remember who it was last week. The Thursday night football game.
Saints.
Oh my gosh.
And Jacksonville. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah. That was a bad game too. Like not only a bad team, it's a bad game.
Yep.
So that's one of those, like, thank goodness that there's, I mean, as I mentioned, Jacksonville State was playing on Wednesday night. So I mean, they're all over the place now. The Big 12 is doing Friday nights now.
Yes.
Which I think is like the first major conference to go to a non-Saturday. Watch some Friday Night Lights games this year too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the one thing is, and that's why I don't like them being on Friday. I will admit that, because I believe Friday should be designated for high school football
for sure
all over the country. So I don't necessarily like any game, college, pro, anything taken away from the high school kids. I believe that Friday night is their night. But other than that, you put football on, I'll watch it.
The NFL stepped on a little bit of the college football turf. There was always like a gentleman's agreement, right, with the Black Friday, that college football will be Black Friday.
They've thrown that out the window.
They said, we're gonna make too much money doing this. It's worth more than our gentleman's agreement. But Tara and I, you mentioned you guys being big into like shows. We have the AMC A-list pass. You pay like 20 some odd dollars a month, and you get to see 3 movies a week for free. So I mean, you're going to the IMAX theaters. You get no upcharge for like the IMAX or the Prime or the Dolby, any of the nice theaters there, that IMAX. So that's what we like to do. So I went and saw Killers of the Flower Moon twice. Spent 8 hours of my life in a movie theater last weekend. I think that's what we like to do. There's more movies coming out like in like Christmas time, Thanksgiving time. There's a little bit of a lull right now. I'm not huge into like I think we've talked about this before, like Exorcist stuff. That's too much. That's too real for me.
Too real.
That's too real. Nun stuff, that's too real for me. So I'm not gonna go see the Nun. I'm not gonna go see the Exorcist.
Nope.
So I've left those movies alone. I'm gonna go see Five Nights at Freddy's, as I mentioned at the top of the show. I think that's gonna be a fun one.
Yes.
Just because I know there's a lot of lore with the game and everything, and I'm not too tied in with the game, but I know of the game. I have some friends that played the game and everything like that. Did you ever play the game?
No.
I like to watch people play the game. It spikes my anxiety if I play it. I'm already too much of an anxious person to be dealing with jump scare games like that.
Right.
But,
that's part of the reason why I don't like, and I may get roped into going to the Exorcist because my wife loves all of those things. But to me, it's my anxiety, because first of all, I think those things can happen and do happen. And then my anxiety is going to be going through the roof, and I'm going to be sitting there on my phone. I just got to get my phone out and just look at my phone, which she's going to get mad and tell me to put it up, and I'm going to be forced to watch it. Oh, it's just brutal. But what do you do? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, there are some good movies coming out though. Towards Christmas time, I think the Napoleon movie comes out. That should be a good one. I don't know how big you are into movies and everything like that, but
I wasn't that big into movies before. But movies can be fun. I mean, just going to the theater, and I'll be honest with everybody, I was 75 pounds heavier. I didn't like going to the theater. I just didn't. Even though the big seating, it just wasn't that comfortable for me. And even though I'm still a big guy, I've lost 75 pounds. It's way more comfortable, can move around better. I don't mind going. It's
the vibe. I love the vibe of the movie theater, of just like going and watching a film, especially with Killers of the Flower Moon. You don't know how many Scorsese and Leo movies you're going to get together anymore.
Exactly.
So that's one of the things where I was like, you know what? I'll I'll spend 3.5 hours twice. I'll spend 8 hours of my life in this movie theater because I don't know when I'm gonna get it. Yeah, Nick Springer dropped in the chat. Didn't know it was a book first. Yes, the book actually focuses a little bit different than what Scorsese and then Marty focuses on in the movie.
Right.
Marty focuses more on like the love story. I had the conversation with somebody on Twitter during halftime of the Chiefs game. So that's just what I do during halftime of Chiefs games. I talk about other things other than the Chiefs. Marty focuses on the love story. The book focuses more on like the solving of like the murders and the crimes and everything like that. So it's a good complementary pieces to each other. So listen, I'm always down to talk movies. If anybody wants to talk movies with me, I love to talk movies. I love film. That's one of my favorite things. But Big B, before we go, any final thoughts for us?
The football season, kind of what you mentioned, Tucker, it's getting close to that halfway point. I mean, 17 games, you really don't have an exact halfway point. I'm excited about the football season. I think the football season has gone well. Although the Chiefs, I think, are separating themselves a little bit. I think their schedule gets a little bit tougher the second half of the season.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see some good football coming up down the stretch. But I was excited. I shouldn't say I'm excited about teams losing, but I was excited because everybody thought that San Francisco was just so much better than everybody else.
Yep.
Well, it turns out they're not. And I like when there is parity. I like parity, and like I said, I know my Steelers aren't very good, but dagnabbit, we're 4-2. How we're 4-2, I don't know, but we are 4-2. Smoke and mirrors doesn't even do it justice on how, like I said, we don't even turn on our offense until the fourth quarter. Won't even turn it on. It doesn't work, nothing. But you know what? When we turn it on, it works. So I like parity. Everybody out there watching football, man, be even more excited because I think the second half of the season is going to be even better. I really, really do. I think it's going to be even better. I'm even more excited.
Only have so many Sundays. You got to make them count.
Right.
Only got many of them. A couple things that I have in my notes here that we missed. Just run through these here real quick. Justin Watson returned to practice, full participant after his elbow injury. Kind of impressive to be a full participant after that injury that he had like 2 weeks after. Zach Ertz placed on Cardinals injured reserve, and Isaiah Wynn was placed on the injured reserve for the Dolphins as well. So a couple of injury notes there. Little PTI style there, like things we missed on the show that I had down. But yeah, that's going to do it for this week's edition of Outside the Trenches. Next week, hopefully we have Nick back. We're very excited to have Nick back, get his thoughts on everything going on around the league. But we'll be back next week live Wednesday night, 9 p.m. You can hang out with us if you are listening to the podcast after the fact. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. You can join us live if you are up late. You're hanging out. We're just hanging out here talking some ball too. So we really appreciate you guys hanging out with us live and listening to it after the fact. That's Big B, Brien Hanley. I'm Tucker Franklin. Thank you to our partners, Five Farms, Irish Cream Liqueur, and our friends at Holiday Distillery. We'll be back next week with another episode. So until then, we'll talk to you later.